Hello, and welcome to this very special episode crossover of Melanin Health Table Talks and the Wellness Evolution Podcast crossover virtual event. I'm Sarah Shaw, Senior Manager of BIPOC Community Outreach at the Global Healthy Living Foundation. For those of you who are new here, we are from the Global Healthy Living Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to help improve the lives of people with chronic disease through better access to care, education, support, advocacy, and of course, patient-centered research. Melanin Health Table Talks is a virtual discussion space for those living with chronic conditions within the Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities to come together to talk about their lived experiences of their healthcare journey, health-related topics, and bring up their challenges, successes, and reflections. Through these conversations, we hope to amplify and center the patient experiences from the BIPOC community and bring to light healthcare disparities that exist in our communities. Wellness Evolution is a podcast that brings together a diverse community to discuss topics such as mindfulness, chronic illness, and mental health, as well as cultural and spiritual similarities and differences that make each of us unique yet very much alike. With July being Minority BIPOC Mental Health Awareness Month, we thought it was crucial that we did an event that focused on BIPOC mental health. A few months ago, the Wellness Evolution podcast released an episode titled It's Not Just Hair, or Is It? Respecting Your Crown with Tammie Jolivette, where they discussed the importance of representation and self-acceptance from head to toe. I immediately knew that I wanted to expand on this rich conversation and its tie into mental health from this episode and bring Tammie, Angel, and Danielle onto Melanin Health Table Talks. Before we dig into the discussion, I'd just like to take a moment to introduce everyone that we have here today. I'm joined today by my colleague Angel Tapia, Senior Manager of Hispanic Outreach at GHLF and host of Wellness Evolution Podcast, and Danielle Ali, Senior Systems Analyst at GHLF and co-host of Wellness Evolution. Our honored guest today is Tammie Jolivette, a motivational speaker and a student in Walden University's PhD program. Tammie is also a hair practitioner who worked with curly hair, particularly black hair, and her research at Walden examines the psychological roots of biases and discrimination against natural hair and how those biases affect members of the Black community and other communities of color. Tammie is also the founder of The Texture of Me, which brings awareness of the mental health barriers that hair discrimination has on the BIPOC community. She is looking to impact the hair industry by providing solution-based education, community support, and also advocating for women with textured hair. Our honored guest today is Tammie Jolivette, a motivational speaker and a student in Walden University's PhD program. Tammie is also a hair practitioner who worked with curly hair, particularly black hair.
Well, I'm just so impressed about, the introduction. I'm like, wow, is that me? So thank you so much for an awesome introduction. When I think about hair and mental health is how do we view our hair? Hair plays a huge impact culturally, right? In society, hair is identified as far as royalty, gender, and just different aspects of what hair, how we perceive hair. And so when we think of mental health, our viewpoint on hair affects our self-expressions, affects our self-image, and that deals with the mental impact. Because, if I view my hair as being beautiful, then I would express myself beautifully. But if I view it as being ugly, then my attitude shifts.
As you were speaking, I was kind of thinking about, this whole conversation about good hair and, I don't want to use the word like bad hair, but this conversation that kind of erupts in, specifically Black communities about who has the good hair and who has the not so desired hair. And I feel like for me specifically, like that definitely has an effect on my mental health, growing up and the differences that have happened with that. And specifically during one of the positive things that I want to say I took out of the COVID-19 pandemic and being able to work remotely was the fact that I could wake up and I could wear my hair more comfortably without that gaze that I would have in an office that was mainly a majority white led organization office, of where you feel like you're constantly being judged by how you present. And I felt like I could become a little bit more relaxed. And that was so beneficial for my mental health in 2020, of just being able to be like, I can just show up as I am. I don't have to be on camera. I don't have to, feel like my hair has to be quote unquote perfect every single day. Starting from your episode that where you had that conversation about the Crown Act and how discrimination plays into the workplace, and I remember my very first job interview straight out of college. I had that thought. I'm like, I need to straighten my hair for this job interview. And I'm thinking back on that. And I did, I straightened my job for my, I thought that that was the norm. I thought that that was the standard. And that, I think, tied into me being like, straight hair is professional, right? Like, I'm wearing braids right now. I would never have thought
Right.
in 2013 that I could wear braids in the workplace, because I didn't see that reflected in media, in corporate, and I think going to that conversation, talking about how important representation is, and how how that plays a part in like our mental health, of if we don't see ourselves reflected, we're not going to think that there's anybody else in the room kind of taking up space with us, puts a lot of pressure, I think, when we're like one of the first people in the organization to wear their hair natural, or to wear braids, or to not have to worry about being kept quote unquote tight. I don't even like to use the word tidy or pretty, but those all have, such a deep psychological effect on us, I think, that comes out. And even Angel, you talking about like, you grew up with what you knew. Those are patterns and things that we were taught. We didn't know any better. And I just now, like, I love like the movement that like I'm seeing now, with just like a lot of pictures on LinkedIn, and seeing like a lot of natural hair girlies like rocking their locks, or rocking their braids, and rocking their natural hairstyle, and just seeing that was not something that I was seeing in 2010, 2013, even the 90s, that wasn't something that was, shown to us.
I remember the moment that I discovered the self love for my hair. It was like yesterday, because the whole time accepting my natural hair, and I remember I shared it a few times where it was a client that told me, say, she was like, "Oh, why don't you wear your hair natural?" I'm like, "Girl, can you stay in your own lane? Like, this is what I do. I'm not gonna be changing my hair." And so I was like, okay, why not? Because I saw beauty in other people with their natural hair, but I didn't see it for me. And here I'm a hairstylist, right? So I took it on, and I remember gazing at myself in the mirror. I wasn't looking at myself. It was just enough to be presentable. And I remember how emotional I was, would cry, and I was like, what is this? And because of my psychology background, I knew there was something mental. And like I said, I remember like it was yesterday, my daughter-in-law sent a picture of me. We were at an event. And oh, girl, my hair. I was like, is that me? Is that my hair? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my hair. And I just fell in love with myself in a way that I didn't even know that was available to me. This level of self expression and confidence, the discovery. I'm like, what? So to tell you the truth, people may say, they can say whatever they want about my hair, but I love my hair. I don't ever have a bad hair day. Now it may need to be shampooed or things like that, but my hair, I love my hair. And having that level of confidence within myself because of my hair, because it's who I am, it's unique. That embracing of uniqueness, no one can ever take away. And that's what going natural meant for me. So yeah, that self love. Oh, nothing like it.
It feels like it was just yesterday that we were just talking about it. I feel like it's still like I re-listened to Tammie's episode, and all those thoughts and feelings, and feeling seen and heard, like from that episode, all came rushing back to me. So my hair journey is interesting. So I'm actually a transracial adoptee, meaning that I was adopted into a family of a different race than me. And for me, I was raised by a gay white dad. and he knew nothing about black hair, but let alone like women's hair, right? So I'm already have this uphill journey of like him getting frustrated with my hair and not understanding like women's hairstyles and trying to put like a he tried. I have to say the guy, he tried. He tried to do our hair, but it was a challenge for him. And he got to a point one time where me and I have a couple other adopted siblings, me and my sister, he got really frustrated to the point where he actually cut our hair very short to like a boy's length because that was more manageable to him. And trauma aside, like that's like something where I didn't like understand that like my natural hair could be beautiful long because it was always kept short or it was straight. And add that on top of you're thinking in the 90s, you're already in a I don't want to say melting pot, but like you're already in like a diverse family situation, and then you're thrown into the school system as like a 8, 9, 10, 11-year old. And there was bullying, right? There was a lot of bullying that came on my end of because kids, I would go to school and my hair was it was a hot mess because he tried, he did, but he didn't know how to work with natural hair. And like the way that I got picked on, you know, made me feel that when he would try to do my hair natural, that was ugly or that was not beautiful because that was when it got picked on. I remember specifically there was a vivid moment where my dad understood like about like chemically straightening my hair. He brought us to the hair salon. It got straightened. And then I remember going into school the next day and people were like, Sarah, your hair is so beautiful. Oh my gosh, I've never seen it so straight before. You look so nice like this. And that those voices and that language like was affirming to me that okay, straight hair good, natural black hair bad. And for years like I never tried to just to go back to being natural because that was what was taught to me, that only girls with straight hair were called beautiful. And it wasn't until that lasted from middle school through high school through college, not until I graduated college, that I started to slowly see like other black women around me starting to embrace their curls. And I started to think of, oh, if they can do it, can I? And I did like and by that point I had damaged my hair so bad. I had split ends and hair was falling out and my edges were, well, there were no edges. They were gone. It was a struggle, and it definitely played a part in, you know, when I go to my first, like I said, my first job interview, I still was like toying with I need to have my hair straightened to be taken seriously, to be respected in the workplace. And I remember my girlfriend, who's not my fiance, she was like, "Why don't you, when you start your first job, like you should come in rocking your natural curls?" And I was like, "No, no, 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 no." I was so nervous. I was like, "No, I just don't feel comfortable." She's like, "But you need to take up space and, you know, be your authentic self." And I remember that first day of work, I walked in, I was so nervous. And I remember it, the way that I was treated was, it was good. I was like, it was like, "Oh, Sarah, your hair's so beautiful." And that was the first time I think that I had like a positive reaction other than my girlfriend of that your natural hair is beautiful. And I think that there's this lack of love that natural hair still gets. It's much better now that we get. And it took me many years to come to, like Tammie said, where you like look in the mirror. And for a while, I looked in the mirror and I didn't see I didn't recognize myself when I first went natural. It was like this weird, like, I don't know who that person is looking back in the mirror at me. And it was like a mental thing. And it took me, I want to say, 3 years going natural to like start to learn to like love my curls, love even though like the journey the natural hair journey is a journey, you know, all the different things that you have to do to, you know, what works for your natural curls, what doesn't work for your curls, the type of the texture of what, not texture, the hardness of the water that you use, the humidity, and some gels don't work, some gels do work, you know. But it took me a while, and I'm just now just so thankful for the women and the people in front of me that have led that movement to show us that any type of hair texture is beautiful. And I just really appreciate that.
I am biracial. My mom's white, my father's Pakistani. So my hair when I was very young was super, super thick, and it was very thick, but it was also very frizzy. Finding out later, I have curly hair later in my life. But my mother, growing up in Brooklyn and being the only white girl, would see how protective styles were done in Brooklyn, which were mostly Black women. So she would tighten my hair super, super tight. So when I winded up getting sick, uh, a lot of my hair had so much tension in it that I lost a lot of my hair. And so now I'm in this phase of my life where I'm wearing protective coverings and I'm like nurturing my hair. And it's just hearing the stories of Angel and Sarah is just so, it's a sense of like inspiration of like you have to go through some sort of trial when it comes to your hair journey, no matter where you are in the spectrum. And sometimes the spectrum is like, because of society, it makes it that much harder. And then there's a side of a spectrum where health reasons come into play. And I know a lot of people in the communities that we serve, they are battling with several different health conditions, and it's hard to find a specialist and understand like who's a specialist in this formula that is my hair. And you get, I had hairdressers in my family and very close, and some of them were very well versed in not only their expertise, but then forcibly in a healthcare aspect, and speaking to dermatologists and speaking to physicians and endocrinologists to see, okay, well, if my client is pre-diabetic and they have eczema, like, could this be a reason? And like, how can we nourish this so that we can save it and recover it? And it's a lot, honestly, now growing up, and my sister, who is Afro-Latina and has Black hair, and seeing her through her journey has been so helpful for me to figuring out, okay, there are ways that people are just not taught on how to keep your hair. And these are like the trials and errors. And it's honestly, it's Black women that have helped me figure out, okay, this is your trial and error. These are the basic things that you need to keep your hair in a somewhat healthy frame while you figure out, how do we grow this back? How do we get it back to being thick? I mean, it will never be what I was when I was 8 years old. But you can find that so that you don't give up, truly. And like, these conversations, I remember listening to you, Angel, and Tammie's episode on the subway, battling with my hair that morning, and I didn't like the head wrap I had on, and I was like, and listening to that and just like kind of crying, because I'm just like, these are the conversations that need to be heard, because it's not only for this community, but like, if people can just understand and see, it all has an underlying thing of, you need to figure out what you need to do to take care of yourself. Sometimes you might not know the root cause to it. Sometimes it could be external causes that are causing it. Sometimes it could be internal. But at the end of the day, it's that self-love that Tammie was talking about. You have to have enough self-love to open yourself up enough to hear these stories, to see people with their self-love and not go, oh, well, you don't understand my story. It's like, oh, I see myself in your story in a very different way, but maybe I need to try some of that self-love medication. And that's currently where
Yeah.
I'm at, is taking that self-love medication.
I really appreciate, Danielle, what you were saying also about, since with the Global Health Living Foundation, we serve the patient community. And I appreciate you bringing up the different interactions and the relationships that our patients have with their doctors, with their dermatologists. We have patients from our community that have eczema, psoriasis, skin conditions that affect the scalp, and how that relates to how they take care of their hair, and even the differences of, for different textured hair, for certain treatments, sometimes it doesn't require, for Black hair, for example, it doesn't require the same amount of washing as, say, a Caucasian or white person's hair. That some of the treatments that are out there for medicated shampoo rinses, and the way that we have to have these conversations with the physicians that are treating our patient community. And it also made me think of, kind of in the same vein of, the way that we show up to doctor's appointments. And if we dig into the weeds a little bit about, I know I've had these conversations with other Black, Indigenous, and people of color in the community of how they feel that they are not taken seriously at doctor's appointments if maybe their hair isn't kept or looking professional. And these are conversations that are happening where they feel that, someone specifically said that they're like, I wish I could wear my hair bonnet to my doctor's appointment, but that should not determine the level of care that I get. It shouldn't matter how I show up. I'm a person that is living with a chronic condition, and I deserve the same amount of care no matter what I look like, what my skin tone is, what my hair care process is. And I just wanted to circle back on that moment, about how we reflect and represent our patient communities. And, we all deserve equal access to care no matter where we are.
Sarah, I really appreciate you bringing that, and Danielle too, as far as health, right? I'm actually speaking at an event on post-traumatic hair syndrome, and people are like, oh, well, does that even exist? And what it is, it does exist, but there's never been a name for it, right? And I can see the broad spectrum of the impact that has, because how we view hair really determines how we feel. And if a person can't go to the doctor without being judged because of their hair, or just this whole aspect about hair, and we talk about the traumatic experiences with hair, right? Like, this thing is legitimately real. And I'm really excited to be on this talk with you guys, because I'm really seeing a different aspect of how post-traumatic hair syndrome can be identified even in this arena, So yeah, it's so broad, and I'm really grateful for the shifting and the awareness and the talks and the conversations around this, because yeah, hair does impact our mental health. And there is a huge correlation to it. And when you think about it being I'd say $1 trillion industry, because, we'll pay for get our hair done, right? And, I won't go, if my hair looks bad, I'm not going anywhere. You know what I mean? And let's, Angel, when we like straighten our hair, and if it's raining, well, won't be going to the event today, So, yeah, that's really, really great. Thank you all for sharing that. Yeah.
I think we feel better too when there's a name for things, of being able to name it, like microaggressions, even PTSD, things like that. I feel like there's a power that we can take back in having names. And rolling into, us talking about natural hair, and you being a textured hair specialist, I want to know what it means for you to be helping folks on their journey to love their natural hair. We're going back to self-love. Like, what does that do for you, for your clients, for your community?
I can't tell you how many people that I'm the first person that understands their hair. And the first thing is, I sit down and talk with them. I relate with them, because it's more than hair. It's more than about hair. And just getting in their world, what it's like, what's their journey, what their hair grows are. And just in that relatedness, you can see them like totally relax, at peace, because now they can trust me. And I can't tell you how many of my clients, like, do whatever you need to do. I trust you. And I'm like, okay, let's go. And having them to understand that it's a process and it's a journey, that it's not just the journey of the discovery of the hair, but it's the journey of the mental processes. And when they get that that's the process, and that I'm here to support them on that, oh my gosh, some of them cry. They're so moved by having someone who cares about them enough to listen. And it's a great experience. I'm moved by it every time. And let them know that I'm available. And it'd be the simplest things that I can actually share with them that make a huge impact on the hair. When we talk about bonnets, right? I'm like, girl, it's a game changer. I gotta get one of those. Yes. And then as far as styling, the routines, the basic routines, like cold water, not hot water strips. And it's like all these game changers are like people hair the hair is getting healthier. I even have friends in other cities and I'll give them the tips like, girl, my hair is growing. Do you see my hair? And that's the stuff that I love because I'm making a difference and they're loving who they are.
It is part of like our mental health, and mental health is just as important as our physical health, and some say it even goes hand in hand. You need both. You need both your mental health to benefit your physical health, and you need your physical health to benefit your mental health, and hair is a part of that. And speaking of talking about like the importance of hair, but as an expression of our cultures, why is it important? And this is a question for, the group. Why is it important to feel comfortable with the natural state of our hair?
I think for me, it was a fact that my daughters are mixed race, and it was, their hair wasn't in a place where they were going to be blow drying and straightening it and going through that process. Their hair is curly, but, very fine. And so I had to learn how to manage their hair because it wasn't, very thick and very coarse, but it was curly. And so realizing that, the techniques that I was using were not natural for my hair, right? I was going against what is natural. I was drying it, I was stripping it, blow drying it, doing all these things to alter the natural state. But yet I was loving their hair and I was using products that help their hair and scalp thrive. And in realizing I had to find my own way with that was saying, I can do both. I can have my hair natural when I want to. I can straighten it when I need to. I can put it in braids when I feel like it. And it was the freedom to say, I don't have to identify my hair in just one way because I'm multicultural and they're multicultural and they should feel like the hair is an expression of all of it. And it doesn't have to be one way or another. So for me, it was really doing their hair that made me realize, I have to show that self-love. They have to see me with my hair curly, natural, frizzed out, whatever that needs to be, or very straight and, barrel curled, rolled, or rollers in my hair. It's okay for them to see all of it and to know that it is self-love that should be the key, not which hairstyle for which event or who's going to like this more than that. It's really just you have the diversity. And what a beautiful thing, because not everybody has that option. We go to places and people are like, oh my gosh, you look so different. And it's like, all you have to do is have a ponytail or have it parted in two ways or, wrapped up before you go to bed. And it's going to look different. But you don't change. The core of you doesn't change. And I think that was a lesson that I wanted to teach them. So embracing my own hair was a part of it, so that I could walk that walk and want them to love their hair and not fall into those stigmas, like you said, Sarah, of, good hair, bad hair. I wanted just to be, this is your hair and this is how you handle your hair. And all three of our hair is different. So we have different products and routines, but that they see it as an extension of themselves and they're proud of it no matter what state it's in.
You brought up like a really good point too, Angel, with hair is hair, right? It all of I love that in your journey teaching your daughters how to take care of their hair also, led you to open up and, be like, I gotta walk and talk and talk and talk. And that takes a while. That takes a while because of what society, I think, has, like you said, has like taught us about the stigmas and microaggressions even that we've had to deal with from society, from the workplace, from the doctor's office, from even within our own families. Like I think there's layers that we've had to grow and live with. From me, growing up in a transracial family, you know, they didn't understand textured hair at all. And I even like remember like certain microaggressions that they would like call like me and my sister's hair as being like, you look like a witch, like with your hair. And like that, like, I'm just like, it's just, but it's hair. And it's because you don't know how to do my hair. That's why it's looking like this. But even take that outside of it. That is the beauty of our hair, is it can become big afros, and it can be in braids, and it can be naturally curly, or we can have twists or locks. And I think just embracing that uh that journey that we all have of our versatility of our hair, like definitely had an effect on my mental health. And if there was something like I wish I could tell my younger self now, is like, you're beautiful like just the way you are, no matter what like anybody else says, and rock your curls, rock your braids, you know, don't, and just embrace it. But I'm glad that we're all, and that's the journey, you know, that it doesn't, sometimes doesn't happen the way that you want it to, but it happens at the time that it's supposed to happen. And I'm just glad to be in the space with all of you, you know, powerful, you know, women, and just to be having this really vulnerable conversation about mental health and hair and how it correlates and relates.
Well, I did have a question when we're talking about, our hair and natural hair. And we talked about the bonnets and we talked about the head wraps, and those are things that we use as protective style. There's also, the significance of what a head wrap is or a veiling is, just as part of cultural communities. And Danielle, I did want to ask you, within the Muslim community, I know that, veiling and head wraps is a part of, cultural, spiritual experiences, but there also is discrimination that comes along, with that. And are there ways that, there is awareness and support to understand, culturally, the importance of head wraps and veiling?
Thank you, Angel. So my own journey, and I'll preference this with mine, and then I'll kind of wrap it into what I see now and coming into my journey. I grew up not ever pressured to wear a head wrap. I was told, you're in the Sunday schools, you're in the religious teachings, and you're told about, once a woman gets to a certain age, it's a sign of modesty. But in Pakistan, it's like, at least the way my grandmother grew up and my father grew up, and I still think now, I haven't been in quite some time, but it was, if you had a head wrap, it would be more of like, we would call it a dupatta, which is just like a scarf, a really long scarf that you lightly drip over your head. And it was more of, now looking into the spirituality and ties deeper as I look into my ancestral roots, it's a sign of protection. It's like protecting the top of your head. And when you think, of how we protect our head, you don't want sunburn on your scalp. And in places like India and Pakistan, like that sun is hitting. So there's like that aspect to it. And I think from a religious aspect, yes, you're told to be modest. And in certain places in the Muslim world, it is very this or that. If you are not wearing your head wrap, or you are not wearing a full niqab, which is where, you put the mouth and nose veil, you are not a Muslim woman. And then there's this whole fight back to being part of being a Muslim woman is taking your own power, because in the teachings, it does talk about Muslim women being very, very strong and very, very, it is, they know what's best for them. And it is the aspect of, there's almost, at least from, maybe it's a biased point of view, there's almost this sensory, when I remember reading it, of women are held to a little bit of a higher standard because they carry life itself, and life itself is the most powerful thing. So when you're wearing a crown, when you're wearing a head wrap, it is a sign of respect. It is a sign of, you're not supposed to damage this. Now, society has taken it to such extremes as we do, to the point where now it's, if she is not covered, she deserves punishment. And that is a whole other thing. And so for me, as like someone who was 8 years old when 9/11 happened, and figuring out that choice of, okay, I hit puberty. So now it's my choice because my parents always gave me that choice. It's like, do I do this being the only Muslim girl in the school, already having to be brought into the principal's office because there was a bomb threat and they suspected me because of my last name? So I saw what happened to
Wow.
my father trying to go back to his home country. I saw like these certain aspects and I chose not to. Now as I'm getting older, I'm having a different connection because I lost a lot of my hair. And I also went through a spiritual journey at certain parts. If we're going to get into astrology, my Saturn has returned in Pisces. So like I'm on this whole little wave and it's meaning something different to me now, where it's still my choice, but it's also, when I go out, this is my spiritual protection. Wrapping the head is like somewhat of a ceremony sometimes. So I'm finding that balance in it, as well as trying to take care of my hair in general and not getting beamed by the ridiculous amount of sun that's out in New York City on the concrete streets. Um, so it's a very, for me, it's become a very interesting journey. As well as I talk to other Muslim women that have two very strong opinions. My mom, as she's gotten older, and her hair is beautiful, thick, luscious, we love it. But as she's recommitted to her faith, as she gets older, she's now wearing the hijab, but she's also expressing herself in a very different way. Now, mind you, she was not born Muslim. She, converted. But as she gets older, it's a spiritual thing of like, I want to be protected. And it is a protection aspect when she goes out and does that. And it's also a pride aspect because she had to deal with the aftermath of what happened to our family after 9/11. A lot had happened. And so we had to be recognized. I was in a very privileged place of, I had two worlds I can kind of lean into. I was screaming for my other world to still be part of me. And I was screaming at the top of my lungs for people to see that this me is what it is. This is what it is. We are this. I am a perfect representation of what we are. So how can you? But then I know other people that were in my situation that said, let's just be a little quieter, because it became dangerous and the Patriot Act did happen. It affected my family. My father was in Rikers for 4 months. So there was a real fear there. So it's a very interesting state that we are in now. You see countries doing hijab bans, you see countries doing hijab mandates, and it's a big conversation because it's a different aspect of how a woman chooses to have her power. And we all know that no matter, there is a religious aspect, but there's always a spiritual aspect to being human. And women especially tend to be untapped from that in their own, intuition. So that's kind of what I've come to. I have no solidified solutions or answers, but it's a fun journey. And I really appreciate you giving me space to talk about that, Angel.
Thank you. And just the words you're saying, that it is spiritual and it is cultural and it is a, representation of, our power. When you look across different, spiritual practices, we talk about the crown, right? That is where it's placed. That is a chakra. And there's just conversations that show the importance of, our body, our mind, right? But also how we show up and what is on our head. Is that something that is protecting us from the sun? Is that something that's showing my cultural background? So there needs to be that respect for it. And I think that what you've shared is something that is a good reminder for us to have, because it is easy to see a head wrap and assume it's a style, or assume why someone's using it. But there are so many reasons that come to play, that there just needs to be a respect, because it is a decision that someone's making. I know my late mother-in-law had cancer and passed away due to breast cancer, but she shaved her head and she used to wear head wraps. And that was, again, to protect her scalp. That was also just a style that, she loved. And so it had a double purpose for her. But one didn't outweigh the other. It was a decision that she made because she loved the way it looked and she had different colors and, she always accentuated them with the colors and clothing she was wearing. So for her, it was very much a sense of pride. Whereas, someone might say, well, you have that on because you have cancer, well, no, she had it on because she's like, I look good. So it's, again, respecting the decisions that we make and, how we do our hair, what we put on our head.
Thank you, Angel, and Danielle and Tammie for sharing your experiences and how it affects our mental health. I'm gonna swing us into the breathing exercise that Danielle is going to lead us through to kind of ground ourselves. So Danielle, why don't you take it away?
I'm going to start with a reading from a book my younger brother gave me called Watering the Soul by Courtney Pepperno. What I've learned by taking a moment to breathe. 1. Acceptance is a state of being. 2. Listening isn't only hearing what you want to hear. Listening is acknowledging not all the things will make sense, feel good, or be free from pain, but it's important to listen anyway. Listening leads to healing. 3. Inhaling and exhaling is the soul's way of renewing. Each moment we take to stop and to breathe is healing. 4. Spending time doing nothing is the best gift you can give yourself. And the last one, 5. Small details often give us reason to love harder, work harder, and be at one with ourselves. By rushing, we often don't see those small details. Let's take a moment to breathe. Let's do 3 rounds of deep breathing. In whatever way, in whatever breathing technique that you need in this moment. For me, it's Uaji breath, which is ocean breathing. Ready?
I just want to say I feel super calm and super relaxed. And while I was doing the breathing out, I was saying like positive affirmations about the beauty of all of our hair. And I hope that that is also what our listeners are going to, affirm to themselves, not only when they listen to this episode, but throughout life, at the doctor, maybe when they're trying a new medication or, trying to battle with their health insurance over something that's happening. I hope that they're able to take this, ground themselves, and keep kicking through life because we're all powerhouses. So I just want to thank all of you for just an absolutely beautiful and amazing discussion that we just had. It's something that I think was very much needed, not only today, but for, BIPOC Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, for every month is something I think that is important. Our mental health, like I keep saying, this is just as important as our physical health, and they go hand in hand. And you absolutely need to make sure that you're watering your flowers, to make sure that you are going through each day. And this is an important topic for each and every community. I want to say, if you are looking for the rest of Tammie's podcast episode, you can find the full interview of It's Not Just Hair, Is It? On the Wellness Evolution podcast. You can also visit our GHLF podcast library that has various topics, conditions, advocacy, patient stories, and medical care at ghlf.org/listen. You'll see our full catalog over there for whatever your podcast healthcare needs are. Thank you so much, and I hope to catch you next time.